Have you ever lain awake at night, staring at the ceiling, while your mind replays the same scene over and over like a broken film reel? Maybe it was a short message, "We need to talk," and suddenly your imagination built an entire story of rejection, failure, or betrayal. Maybe it was a careless comment from someone at work that shouldn't matter, but hours later you were still replaying it in your head, building anger with every repeat. Or maybe it's the quiet, heavy weight of anxiety that seems to come from nowhere, wrapping itself around your chest, making even small tasks feel enormous. If any of this feels familiar, you're not broken, you're human. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of our suffering doesn't come from what actually happens to us. It comes from the stories our mind creates about what might happen, what should have happened, or what never even happened at all. We aren't being crushed by life itself. We're being crushed by our interpretation of life. The careless driver who cut you off is gone in seconds, yet the anger burned for hours. The presentation lasts 10 minutes, but the anxiety consumes you for days. The email is just a line of text, but your imagination turns it into a threat. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Think about that. You always have the power to revoke the story. Yet, most of us never learn how. That's where Stoicism comes in. This isn't some dusty philosophy locked in ancient books. It's a living toolkit for mastering your inner world. It doesn't promise to erase fear, anger, or sadness, because those emotions are part of being alive. Instead, it gives you the ability to face them, reshape them, and prevent them from controlling you. Stoicism teaches us that peace isn't the absence of emotion. Peace is the ability to meet emotion with strength and clarity. And that's what we are about to explore together. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to share 7 Stoic practices that can transform the way you experience fear, anger, and anxiety. These are not abstract theories. They are habits, stories, and tools that you can begin applying today. Even if you take just one of these lessons and practice it, you may already notice the storm inside you growing quieter. So here's my invitation. Stay with me until the end, because this is not about suppressing your emotions or pretending to be unshakable. It's about reclaiming your mind, one thought at a time. But before we dive into the solutions, we must first understand the enemy. Because if the battlefield is inside the mind, then we need to see the storm for what it really is. Part 1, the storm of the mind. Think about the last time your emotions hijacked your day. Maybe it was anger boiling up when someone cut you off in traffic. The incident lasted seconds, but the frustration lingered for hours, coloring the way you spoke to colleagues or family. Maybe it was anxiety before presentation, your palms sweating, your heart racing, your brain whispering, "What if I fail? What if I embarrass myself?" Or maybe it was sadness that arrived uninvited, making everything feel heavier than it should. These storms always feel bigger than the events that triggered them. And that's the irony. The original spark is usually small. The driver is gone in an instant, but your thoughts replay it endlessly. The presentation takes 10 minutes, yet you carry the weight for days. The sadness? Often born from nothing more than a passing thought. The mind doesn't just react to events. It builds hurricanes around them. Left untrained, our thoughts transform tiny sparks into raging fires. The Stoics saw this clearly. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you'll find strength." He understood what many of us forget. You can't control the traffic, the words of others, or the twists of fate, but you can always control the meaning you attach to them. And in that meaning lies either freedom or captivity. But let's be honest. When the storm is raging, it feels impossible to remember philosophy. The body reacts instantly. The heart pounds, muscles tense, breath shortens. Fear, anger, or anxiety grab the wheel before we even notice. That's why Stoicism cannot remain theory. It must be practice, training, a daily discipline that helps us catch the storm before it destroys the day. Here's the encouraging truth. The storm is not your enemy. The storm is your signal. It tells you when the mind is taking control, when you've handed over the reins. It's a reminder that you have tools, and it's time to use them. The first tool is the simplest but also the most powerful, recognizing that your mind is not just reacting to the world. It is creating your experience of it. Your mind can generate misery or joy. It can imprison you or set you free. And the moment you realize this, you hold the key to change. So let's begin with the first Stoic principle, learning how your mind itself can generate happiness or suffering. Principle 1. Your mind can generate happiness or suffering. Your mind is not a camera that simply records reality. It is more like a lens, and depending on how you aim and polish it, that lens can either reveal beauty or distort everything into ugliness. The Stoics understood that the mind is an engine of meaning, capable of creating either harmony or chaos. And because most of us never learn to operate it properly, we end up trapped by our own interpretations. Picture this. Your mind is like a piano. Each key represents a thought, and together those notes create the soundtrack of your life. When you repeatedly press the wrong keys, ruminating on failures, replaying criticisms, predicting disasters, you produce discord, stress, frustration, exhaustion. But when you deliberately press different keys, gratitude, reflection, presence, you create harmony, the same instrument, but completely different music. Take the simple act of waking up. If the first thought you allow is, I'm already behind, I'll never catch up, then your entire day becomes a song of pressure and fatigue. But if instead you think, I'm alive, I have a chance today, nothing in the outside world changes. Your tasks remain the same, but your internal soundtrack shifts to resilience and energy. Seneca once said, true happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future. Happiness isn't locked in promotions, possessions, or recognition. It begins with the discipline of thought. The mind generates joy when you train to focus on what is within your control, on what is meaningful right now. Here's a practice. The next time negativity overwhelms you, pause and ask, I pressing the wrong key? Then choose differently. Recall one moment you're grateful for, one person you love, one hope you still carry. Even a small shift can change the entire composition of your day. Over time, these intentional notes build a symphony of peace. Your mind is not broken. It is extraordinary. But extraordinary power without direction often turns destructive. The first Stoic principle is to accept responsibility for your focus. You may not control the storm outside, but you always control which keys you press within. And that choice, repeated daily, is the beginning of freedom. Yet recognizing the piano is only the start. The next question is, how do you guide it? How do you stop being dragged by runaway thoughts and start taking the reins? That's where the second principle begins. Directing the mind. Principle 2, directing the mind. Once you understand that your mind is capable of producing either joy or misery, the next step is to take the reins. Because if you don't direct your thoughts, they will direct you. The Stoics taught that suffering rarely comes from events themselves, but from the judgments we attach to them. A delayed flight, a harsh word, a financial setback. None of these inherently contain anger, fear, or despair. It is the meaning we give them that determines our emotional reality. Think about anger. Perhaps you snapped at someone in the heat of the moment. Your voice rose, words came out sharp, and afterward you felt regret. The trigger may have been small, but your reaction multiplied the harm. Seneca warned, anger, if not restrained, is more hurtful than the injury that provokes it. Anger feels powerful in the moment, but in truth it drains power. It takes clarity, weakens self-control, and often leaves damage harder to repair than the original wound. The same is true of fear and anxiety. They're not external forces pressing on you. They're patterns created by a mind left to wander. Without guidance, the mind is like a wild horse without reins, powerful, fast, but dangerous. It bolts toward imagined threats, drags you through stress, and leaves you exhausted. Directing the mind means becoming the rider. It means choosing where the horse runs. How? Begin with the pause. When strong emotion rises, resist a reflex to react instantly. Take a breath. Ask yourself, where is this really coming from? Is this worth my peace? What would happen if I didn't respond with anger? That small pause creates space. And in that space, you rediscover your freedom. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, If you are troubled by something external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your judgment of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Directing the mind doesn't mean silencing every negative thought. It means choosing not to be ruled by them. It means reminding yourself that emotions are signals, not orders. The more you practice, the steadier you become, the calm in the storm rather than the passenger dragged through it. But even when we hold the reins, there's another trap, our imagination. Left unchecked, it produces endless horror stories that feel real, even when nothing has happened. To truly direct the mind, we must learn how to stop those spirals. That's our third principle. If directing the mind is about holding the reins, then the wildest stallion you'll ever face is your own imagination. Left untrained, it gallops straight into worst-case scenarios. A short text, "We need to talk," and suddenly your brain writes a whole script of rejection, betrayal, or catastrophe. A small delay in an email response becomes proof you failed. One nervous glance during a meeting becomes evidence that everyone doubts you. None of it is real. Yet your body reacts as a disaster has already struck, heart racing, stomach tightening, energy collapsing. The Stoics knew this trap well. Epictetus wrote, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." Most of the suffering you carry isn't from events themselves. It's from the stories you create about those events. And your imagination, brilliant as it is, tends to write horror films rather than comedies. But here's the liberating truth. If your mind is capable of inventing terrifying stories, it's equally capable of inventing hopeful ones. Instead of letting imagination spiral downward, you can train it to spiral upward. Instead of rehearsing failure, you can rehearse success. Instead of picturing humiliation, you can picture growth. This isn't denial, it's discipline. Here's a simple exercise. The next time anxiety grips you, whisper, "This is just a story." Those 4 words create distance. They remind you that you're watching a movie in your head, not experiencing reality. Then deliberately imagine a different outcome. Picture the meeting going smoothly. Picture the conversation ending in laughter. Visualize yourself calm and steady instead of frantic. Over time, you train your brain to choose better scripts. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Think of how much lighter life would feel if you stopped suffering twice, once in your head and once in the world. Most of your fears will never materialize. And even if they did, you'd likely survive, adapt, and move forward. Your imagination is not the enemy. It's a tool, but a tool can either build or destroy, depending on how you use it. By learning to stop negative spirals and replace them with constructive visions, you reclaim control over your inner world. And once you learn to redirect imagination, the next step is even more powerful. Redefining the emotions themselves. Because how you label what you feel determines whether it weakens you or fuels you. That's our 4th principle. Principle 4, redefine your emotions. Every emotion you feel begins with a label. That label determines whether the sensation becomes a weight that crushes you or a force that fuels you. Most people never realize how much power they hand over to the words they use in their own minds. I'm anxious. I'm angry. I'm broken. Each label becomes a verdict, shaping the way you experience reality. Imagine waking up to a gray, rainy morning. You sigh and think, "This day is ruined." But was it really the rain that ruined your day? Rain is just water falling from the sky. It has no agenda. What created your misery was the story you attached to it, the label of ruined. If instead you called it a chance to slow down or a moment for reflection, the rain would feel entirely different. The external world didn't change. Only your interpretation did. The Stoics urged us to see emotions not as enemies, but as signals. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And those thoughts are colored by the labels we choose. Consider the classic example of anxiety before a presentation. Your heart races, your hands sweat, your stomach churns. If you label that experience as fear, it paralyzes you. But if you label it as energy or proof that I care, the same sensations become fuel for performance. The feeling didn't change, only the name did. This reframing works everywhere. Frustration can be seen as weakness or as a sign that you deeply value something. Stress can be viewed as suffocation or as evidence that you are engaged in something meaningful. Fear can be labeled as danger or as growth. Emotions themselves are raw data. The labels you attach transform them into obstacles or allies. Here's a practice. The next time a strong emotion arises, say to yourself, this is, and fill in the blank. This is anxiety. This is frustration. This is energy. By naming the feeling, you separate it from your identity. You're not fearful, you're experiencing fear. That subtle shift turns the overwhelming into the observable. And when it's observable, you can work with it. You can't stop emotions from arriving, but you can stop giving them destructive names. When you redefine them, you reclaim power. You realize that emotions aren't commands, they're information. And information, used wisely, becomes guidance. But to truly use emotions as guides, we must go deeper. We must study the machine producing them, the mechanics of the mind itself. That takes us to the fifth principle. Principle 5, understand the mechanics of the mind. If you want to stop being dragged by emotions, you must first understand the machine that produces them, your mind. The Stoics knew that the mind is both our greatest strength and our greatest weakness. Left untrained, it builds endless loops of worry, fear, and regret. But with awareness, it becomes a wellspring of resilience and clarity. Think of the mind as a garden. If you never tend it, weeds grow on their own, resentments, insecurities, imagined disasters. But if you nurture it daily, planting seeds of gratitude, practicing reflection, choosing calm, then it flourishes. Most people, though, don't learn how to care for this garden. They try to cut out negative thoughts like pulling weeds in panic, only to watch them grow back stronger. That's because suppression amplifies. Tell yourself, don't think about failure, and failure dominates your attention. Tell yourself, don't feel anxious, and anxiety roars louder. Epictetus put it simply, people are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. The mind doesn't just record what happens. It interprets, filters, and magnifies. Fear before an exam isn't caused by the test itself, but by your judgment. If I fail, I'm worthless. Anger at a colleague isn't caused by their words, but by the story you attach. They don't respect me. Recognize the pattern. It's not events that disturb you, but your interpretation of them. Here's a practical exercise. When emotion surges, pause and ask 3 questions. 1. Where did this come from? 2. Is it really as big as it feels? 3. Is it worth giving away my peace? These questions interrupt the loop. They give you space to remember that thoughts are not commands. They are options. Modern neuroscience now confirms what the Stoics intuited. The more often you repeat a thought, the stronger the neural pathway becomes. Tell yourself, I'm not good enough 100 times, and your brain wires itself to believe it. But repeat, I am learning. I am improving with the same consistency, and your brain rewires toward resilience. The mind multiplies what you feed it. Understanding this mechanism changes everything. Instead of fighting your thoughts, you start working with them. Instead of fearing emotions, you treat them as feedback. The mind is not your enemy. It is your most powerful ally, if you learn how to use it. And once you understand the machine, there's an even deeper realization. You are not the machine. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes them. That's the heart of the 6th principle. Principle 6. Step back from your thoughts. Perhaps the most liberating Stoic insight is this. You are not your thoughts. At first, this feels strange. After all, the voice in your head speaks in your language, using your memories, your fears, your hopes. But just because it sounds like you doesn't mean it is you. Thoughts are events in the mind, like clouds passing across the sky. They appear, shift, and fade. You are not the cloud. You are the sky. Imagine you're in a meeting and a thought suddenly strikes. What if I embarrass myself? Your body reacts instantly, heart racing, chest tightening, palms sweating. Yet pause for a moment. Nothing has happened. No one has judged you. The fear you feel is not from reality, but from the story your mind projected. Most of the distress we experience comes not from facts, but from believing our thoughts without question. The Stoic practice here is detachment. not suppression, detachment. It means stepping back, watching thought arrive, labeling it, and choosing whether to engage. Marcus Aurelius wrote daily reminders to himself. Training his awareness to recognize thoughts as impressions, not commands. One powerful exercise is labeling. When a thought arises, simply say, this is fear, this is anger, this is judgment. Naming creates distance. Suddenly, you're not drowning in the emotion. You're observing it. Modern psychology confirms this too. Naming emotions reduces their intensity. Another tool is perspective. Ask yourself, will this matter in a week, a month, a year? If yes, take thoughtful action. If no, release it. This question pulls you out of the storm and back into the wider horizon of life. You don't need to silence your thoughts. You only need to stop treating them as commands. Let them flow like a river. You are standing on the bank, not drowning in the current. This is the heart of Stoic freedom. Realizing that your thoughts may scream, but you decide whether to obey. And here's the paradox. When you step back from your thoughts, you gain more control, not less. Detachment doesn't make you passive. It makes you steady. You can still act, but now your actions are guided by clarity, not compulsion. But awareness alone is not enough. Just as muscles strengthen through daily exercise, the mind becomes resilient only through consistent training. That's why the seventh principle is about practice. Training your mind every single day. Principle 7, train your mind daily. The final Stoic principle is about consistency. Mastery of the mind is not achieved in a single moment of clarity. It is built in the same way strength is built in the body, through repeated, intentional training. You wouldn't expect to lift weights once and develop lasting strength. In the same way, you cannot read one quote or watch one video and expect permanent calm. Resilience is not a gift. It is a discipline. Epictetus reminded his students, no great thing is created suddenly. Just as a tree requires seasons to grow roots, and fruit takes time to ripen, your mind requires patience and practice. The Stoics did not run from difficult emotions. They trained for them. They treated life as a gymnasium, every challenge an opportunity to build endurance, wisdom, and strength. So how do you train daily? Begin with reflection. Each evening, take 5 minutes to review your day. Ask yourself, what stirred my anger today? What triggered my anxiety? Did I respond with wisdom or did I react blindly? This nightly inventory builds awareness, like keeping a log of your workouts. Over time, you'll see patterns, recurring triggers, false stories, areas where you're growing stronger. Another exercise is premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Picture possible setbacks before they happen. Imagine a project failing, a friend disappointing you, plans collapsing. Not to wallow in fear, but to prepare. Ask, even if this happened, could I endure? Could I adapt? Usually the answer is yes. And with that realization, fear loosens its grip. Most importantly, train through small daily choices. Pause before applying to a harsh message. Reframe anxiety as energy before a big task. Take one slow breath when frustration rises. These are like push-ups for the mind. Small, simple, but powerful when repeated. Think of mental training, like brushing your teeth. You don't skip it just because you did it yesterday. You do it every day because neglect leads to decay. Emotional discipline works the same way. If you stop practicing, negativity creeps back in. The truth is, there is no finish line. You will never become immune to fear, anger, or sadness. But with training, you will no longer be enslaved by them. You will respond instead of react. You will bend without breaking. You will find strength where you once found only struggle. And when these daily practices combine with the 6 principles before, something profound happens. You begin to experience transformation. That's where our journey ends. Not with theory, but with a call to action. We've walked together through 7 Stoic principles, and by now the pattern is clear. The storms you face are not only outside, but within. Fear, anger, and anxiety may visit you, but they do not have to define you. You've seen that your mind is capable of generating both misery and joy, that you can learn to direct it instead of being dragged by it, that imagination can either trap you or empower you, that emotions can be reframed into teachers, that understanding the mechanics of the mind transforms chaos into clarity, that stepping back from thoughts gives you freedom, and that daily training builds resilience. This is the transformation Stoicism offers. Not a life without emotion. That is impossible. But a life where emotions no longer rule you. Imagine yourself living that way. When traffic slows you down, you breathe and let it pass. When criticism comes, you consider it without letting it poison your self-worth. When anxiety whispers before a challenge, you hear it, acknowledge it, and still step forward with strength. That is not fantasy. It is a result of practice, one choice at a time. But here's the key. Listening is not enough. Philosophy only becomes power when it is applied. So here is your challenge. Pick one principle and use it today. Maybe it's labeling your emotions instead of drowning in them. Maybe it's journaling tonight about the triggers you faced. Maybe it's telling yourself, this is just a story, the next time your imagination spirals. Action is where wisdom becomes strength. And share your journey. Leave a comment naming the principle you'll begin with. Writing it down makes it real. Share this video with someone you know who needs these tools. You never know whose storm you might calm. And if you want to keep growing, subscribe and continue learning how to live with clarity, strength, and peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." That truth is just as urgent today as it was 2,000 years ago. You cannot always control the storm outside, but you can always train to master the storm within. And that mastery begins not tomorrow, not someday, but with your very next thought. Choose wisely.